Well, good morning, Sir Rudy. I was having a drink of water earlier on today and an ant fell in the water, sunk to the bottom, and I was thinking, I wonder what sex this ant is. And then it floated to the top and I went, it's a boy ant. Good morning, everyone. How you all doing? Oh, hang on. Good morning, everyone. How you all doing? Let's have a look at what we've got here today. It is Friday, the 22nd of July. It is raining outside. How unusual. 16 degrees, looking for a top of 17 today. Petrol, $1.78.9. We know what they're doing. They're bringing it right down before the excise comes back, and then we're going to have to pay 22 cents extra. If this is your first time here, I want you to like and share that right there. So like that smash button. And if I'm not on at 9 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time every single day, folks, you know what it is. I'm not on. It is the no-no school. Well, we got things going on here. Rudy, before we do... I'm speaking at a million miles an hour, aren't I? It's because I'm excited. Rudy, cheers, Rudy. Cheers. How's that whiskey going for you? We had a good chat yesterday. Das is good, yeah? Yeah, and from one Gerald to another Gerald.
All hail Rudy.
Got to get all that out of the way for the introduction. I tell you, we've got your memes, we've got news of the day, and we've even got a special guest. And I think I'd like to introduce you to, I don't know who he is, I don't know why he's here. Maybe we'll find out a little bit more a little bit later. But right now, let's introduce you to the guest. Hello, Dennis.
Gerald, hi.
Are you, what time's your court appearance?
No, that's tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Just wondering why you're wearing a suit.
Yeah, I'm clear.
I'm
clear today. Yeah.
It's the only reason you wear a suit is go to a funeral or a wedding or a court appearance.
No. There's a fourth reason.
And it is?
To impress you.
Oh, so the impressing is already happening. Dennis, you might not know this, but one of the things that we always have to do here is that people want to know why they're here and they want to know who is first. So we got to find out who is first. Let me just take it back to me for a second. Who is first? The word of the day, and I'm going to leave this with you, good Dennis. The word of the day is nudistortion. Nudistortion. Is that how you pronounce it?
Nudistortion.
Nudistortion. Break the word down. What do you got?
Nude.
Nude.
Yeah, the word starts off well.
It does.
No, but it goes downhill from there.
So nudistortion.
Nudistortion.
See, if I was to break it down, I'm going nude, which is naked, in the US. Naked in the US. Sturtion. An nasturtium is a flower, isn't it?
It is.
A nude flower in the US. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah.
You got that?
It'll do me. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Mate, good to see you.
Yeah.
It's been such a long time since we've had this chat, and I think the reason that you're here is that I read your book.
Yes.
This book here. I read this book here.
Well, that's what you tell me.
Well, no. I read the opening paragraph.
Okay.
It says, in the winter of the fall, and the book title here is if 70 is the new 50, when do I get to retire? So, it must be really... Are you impressed by having your name on a book?
That's the only reason I wrote it.
Is it?
Yeah. It's an ego thing.
One of the things I read in the book is that you have this... you have a lot of good quotes. Stephen Covey, you talk about the Kubler-Ross model, which is the process of grief, or the process of loss, or the stages of loss. And you also talk about Simon Sinek, the British guy. Mm-hmm. And his big thing is around your purpose, or what is your why. Why did you want to do this?
What? Why did I want to do this interview, or why did I want to do the book?
Maybe both. Well,
okay.
let's just firstly start with the interview. Why do you want to sit here?
Look, I just want to catch up with you. The only time I get to talk to you now is when you want to put a camera in my face and we do an interview. So
yes.
because
with clothes on this time.
Because we've not spoken for, I think the last time we got together was in the middle of all of the COVID stuff, and we've managed to find a coffee shop that had serve us. But that was a little while ago.
It was. It was just not far from here. Yeah, we just caught up. And didn't we all have to still wear masks? And
supposedly.
Social
But there were
distance?
a couple of people around that weren't wearing masks, you and I being two of them.
Those rebellious people. I have no idea why we would want to do all that. But I'm so glad. Look, the other thing that we have to go through, because this is all in aid of my father, Rudy, as you know, and I have to read the news out to him. So, Rudy, hang on 2 seconds. We're going to get with you. And if you want to make comment on any of the news items, please feel free. So let's just do the news of the day, then we'll have a look. Are you up for a telephone call later on too?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so if you're nearing retirement, well, you explain it. I have no idea what you do.
Yeah, look, whilst the book says, if 70 is the new 50, when do I get to retire? It's more about life change. Retirement's a big life change, obviously. But there's all sorts of stages in our lives where we might feel that we're caught in a rut and we're not quite sure how to get out of it. And that's what the book's about.
Okay. That makes it easy for me. So at least I get to know is that there must be some process that I can go through while sitting here behind this fancy desk here, in the box, knowing that there is hope for me.
Yeah, look, you're already living the life of your dreams.
Is this a dream?
Yeah, we both know this. So I don't think you need a book to tell you how to do that.
Maybe I do. Maybe I do. Yeah. And I had to read your book twice because the first time sounded like it was too easy. Honestly, it sounded like it was... Is it really that easy? But I think what I liked about it also is that there is a mindset, isn't there? You've got to have this total mindset about, okay, I'm going to make the transition. It's like, did you have a mindset when you left the corporate world and then went into your own business? Did you have
definitely.
a different mindset there?
Totally.
What was that?
Well, number one, I didn't want anybody telling me what to do. But the reality was when there was nobody there to tell me what to do, I wasn't quite sure what to do, even though I thought I knew what to do. So it was an interesting transition.
Had no one to follow, had no one to maybe to emulate,
Yeah.
had no one to piss off at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Except yourself. Let's go through news of the day, Rudy, and then you can go and watch your Bonanza or whatever it is that you watch. Here we go. Oh, so I just want to remind people what it was like maybe this time last year. So this is only 12 months ago. Brisbane lockdown, Australia City to shut down over 7 cases. So you remember this, don't you?
I do.
We shut down over 7 cases. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, we've got 7 cases. Locked the city down for 3 days. Okay, let's carry on. So just to get us used to how this, would you say it's a big plan? It's part of the plandemic? No.
I would say so.
Ooh,
It was preconditioning for the conditioning.
Ooh, preconditioning for the condition. I think a lot of people would agree with that. So let's have a look at this. This is our Premier, Anastasia Palaszczuk, putting on a show. Of course, putting on a show. So she's wearing a mask. I can guarantee you she doesn't wear a mask any other time except for the cameras, correct?
Yep.
Yep. So here we have her going now. Have you got your winter COVID-19 booster yet? And there are some comments after this that she has to answer for. So these were the cases. Now, keep in mind, this time last year, we shut down the whole country, or shut down Brisbane, for 7 cases. And now here we have new cases, 11,687. There were 9,887 tests that were done in the last 24 hours. You can see there's 94% that had their first dose, 92%, close to 93%, had their second dose. And I'm guaranteeing you would agree too that the cases have gone down, like the number of vaccinations have gone down.
Yeah,
people are not waking up. They're waking up to themselves now. So 1,426,054 cases in Queensland. And we shut down the place this time last year
for 7.
So here are some comments that people are saying. To Anastasia while she's sitting there having her jibbity jab. You haven't been paying attention. At the start of this whole fiasco, the CDC and the WHO said, get vaccinated for COVID to stop the spread. Then they changed their message to suit how ineffective the vaccines were. These vaccines are a joke. I haven't had one. I've had COVID and I've breezed through it in just 2 days. Just being healthy and fit is the best defense. You agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Fit and healthy. That's all it is. Second one says, Elise Green says, we'll stop the transmission, clown. Worth 900 says, how's that saline injection? Yeah, we're on to you. And DMAC says, definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. All right, let's have a look at some of the news of the day. Rudy, here's what we got. Mask mandates are quite likely to return, top Australian doctor says. What do you think?
I would hate to see mask mandates return.
Yeah.
And I think our government is also resisting the push to mandate for the return, because I think they recognised quite a while ago that it doesn't deliver the result that they claimed it would.
I read an article even yesterday. Mark McGowan in Western Australia is even questioning, bringing back the mask mandate because of public interest.
Yeah.
And the public are saying to him, "Hey, this isn't probably a good idea." But I think if we were to
Is there an election coming up in WA?
Yeah, there's an election coming up.
Oh, yeah. Funny that.
How unusual. It's only when it counts.
Yeah.
And of course,
let's lock down the state until 6 months before an election, and then we'll open it
and we'll
all
open it up again. Yeah. So Top Doctor says, yeah, okay, good, Top Doctor. Well, you wear your mask and you do what you have to do, but you can leave us alone. Qantas. Now, you've got some experience with the parent company Qantas, which and then the child company or Jetstar. But Qantas puts a 13-month-old baby on a separate flight to her parents. They're in a lot of mess, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I don't know what's going on with Qantas and what they're doing, but there's even more stories of this, and you've got a great story. I think I want to hear a little bit about that. Is how do you rebook a parent on one flight and then you go, oh no, we're going to put the child on another flight? Like, how do you do that in your head? And then what Qantas says is that they abrogated all their responsibilities and they said, it's not our fault, you made the booking. No. What happened is that we made the booking with our child, you delayed the flight, then we had to get another flight and you put her on another one. And they're going, not our fault. Not our fault. So I'm loving this whole, handball everything to everyone else. Hey, it's COVID. It's the pandemic that has caused this.
Well, when you've got the CEO, Alan Joyce, saying that Australian travellers are not used to travel anymore, so therefore they're not quite sure about airport procedures, and hey, that's what's causing all these delays. I don't think the credibility factor is very high with the Qantas execs.
That's what we're saying. We don't believe you.
Yeah.
Fake doctor, I love this. So there's this doctor on the Gold Coast who was handing out COVID exemptions. Fake doctor fined $25,000 over bogus COVID-19 exemptions. What I love about this is that she was charging $75 per exemption, and she did over 1,000. So my maths tells me that she made just over $75,000 in the exemption certificates.
Yep.
She gets fined for $25,000. She pockets a cool $50,000, and she doesn't have to repay the other monies. And yet there are 1,000 people running around with these fake exemptions. My suggestion to her is that she should probably go to Western Australia, because yesterday I did a story that in Broome they're looking for doctors at $2,700 a day. Maybe she could go there and fake that.
Yeah.
Make her 70 grand a lot more worthwhile. So
with no fines.
With what?
With no fines.
With no fines.
Yeah.
There's no more fines anymore. Here we go, Qantas again. Qantas pilots make a mid-air Mayday emergency call over low fuel concerns. I have this thing that I'm onto now. It's called the one job thing. You've got one job, Dennis. You just need to get here on time. Like, that's all you need to do. And Qantas pilots, well, not the pilot so much, but the guy who's the refueler. One job. Fill the tank up, mate. Mm-hmm. Oh, what do you need? Do you need diesel? Do you need unleaded? No, jet fuel would be good. Okay, let's fill that up. One job.
Maybe it was at the top of the fuel price cycle, so he decided not to fill it up quite so much.
Because you just went to Daydream Island like a couple of weeks ago, last week.
A week before last, yeah, definitely.
Who'd you fly with?
Jetstar.
Let's just rip that company apart for now. Okay? Let's just do that. So for those who don't know, we've got Qantas, which is the parent company, and sitting underneath Qantas is one of their carriers, which would be Qantas Link, a little smaller plane, and then you've got Jetstar, which is a cheap alternative to Qantas. So you book your flight to Proserpine, which is it's the Whitsunday Airport, they call it now.
Yep.
How'd that go?
Look, the flight itself was fine, as long as you didn't expect to land at Proserpine, because that's where it all came unstuck.
What happened?
We're supposed to land at Proserpine. The pilot had 2 goes at it. He couldn't get the plane down because visibility, fog was not good. We turned around and came back to Brisbane. So we had a joy flight to Proserpine and back.
You went to land.
Yep.
There's a bit of fog around.
Yep.
Like if you go a little bit lower, like I'm sure I've done a flight simulator. I know how to do it. So you would just go a little bit further down, and then you would see, oh, there's the runway, because you've got all your instruments there. I'm guessing you could fly that thing without having to have visuals, correct?
More than likely.
More than likely. I'm not a pilot.
Provided the pilot knows the airport, right?
Yeah.
But these days, with so many pilots have been pushed to one side, and especially with Qantas and Jetstar, there's a lot of pilots that aren't that familiar with some of the regional airports. So it could be that our pilot on the day, I'm not saying it was the case, but it could be that he's not had a lot of experience of landing at Proserpine.
Nice
So he's a little bit unsure. And look, to be honest, I would rather have a pilot take a decision to go back to what he's sure of, rather than take a chance on our lives and crash the plane. But having said that, I think Jetstar handled the whole thing poorly, really poor. We get back to Brisbane.
Yes.
And there is one person on the service desk to process 180 odd passengers who have come back from a flight that they expected not to have to come back from.
Were there a lot of angry people?
Quite a few angry people.
Really? Were they yelling and screaming? And I deserve better.
Yeah, I took pity on some of the Jetstar staff that were trying to work the line, and it was a long line, in keeping people calm. But it took close to 4 hours.
Whoa.
4 hours to process all of those people in terms of rebooking on other flights or refunds or,
So then you flew back. You flew back to Proserpine.
No.
Oh, so you didn't go on your holiday?
Jetstar couldn't get us to Proserpine. This was the Monday, and Jetstar couldn't get us to Proserpine until the Friday. So we decided that wasn't appropriate. But Jetstar did kindly advise us that we could fly with Virgin or Qantas, which when I checked, yes, we could if we wanted to pay $1,000 each one way to get to Proserpine, when that's normally a $300 fare. So we ended up driving.
Oh, you drove from Brisbane?
From Brisbane to Proserpine, 12-hour drive.
But you did a stop off. You stopped off maybe halfway, Gladstone or Rockhampton?
Yeah, Gladstone. Yeah, stopped off, got to Gladstone around 10 o'clock at night, and then the next day headed off from Gladstone and made it to Airlie Beach by about 3 o'clock.
Now, Rudy, I'll continue the news a little bit later, but I just want to have a chat with Dennis, if you don't mind. So you can go and watch Bonanza or something, or you can stick around and listen to the wonderful conversation I'm going to have with Dennis. Now, you've got two kids, Dennis and...
I've got three kids. Dennis, Crystal, and Jasmine.
And Jasmine.
Yeah.
So your name's Dennis.
Yep.
And your firstborn is Dennis.
Yeah.
What, you didn't feel like being creative that day?
Definitely not.
So
no.
you kind of like you woke up and,
But the added dimension was my father's name is Dennis.
No
as well.
way.
Yeah.
So there's now pressure on Dennis when he gets a child to call the first one.
He's got two children.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he's got two children, and his eldest is called Darren.
Darren?
Darren.
That's not right.
Darren with an E.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's not very creative, is it? Your father kind of like going, waking. Oh, look, Dennis, did you have glasses when you were young?
No, not
like
when I
Dennis.
was young. Yeah, they came later.
What I'm surprised about is you're not even Australian.
No, I'm not.
I
was born in England.
Born in England, came to Australia. I'm guessing all my stuff when I was reading your book.
Yeah.
When I was reading your book. Let me guess. Came to Australia, went back when you were 6?
16.
No, you went back to the UK when you were 6. No, sorry, you came to Australia.
When I was 8.
8, right. Came to Australia, and then you thought, no, I'm going to go back, but you didn't go back to the UK when you wanted to work. But you lived in a place called Stockport, correct?
Correct.
And then moved to Southampton.
Yes.
So why did you then want to come to Australia? I mean, the parents immigrated,
Yeah.
but why did they want to come to Australia?
Well, they wanted to come to Australia because, in the early 1960s, Australia was advertising like mad to, build its population. And they saw it as being an opportunity. And if you've lived any time in the north of England, you would understand why people want to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
So they came over with their kids, of which I was one. And we lived in Australia until I was 16 and then went back to the UK. But for me, at 8 years old, I'm English, but by the time I'm 16, I think I'm Australian. So my formative years turned me into an Aussie. So as an Aussie with a British passport, I go back to the UK with my parents because they decided that they wanted to get back to where their family was and all of that sort of thing. But I didn't like it at all. And it took me 3 years to get back to Australia.
So, and that's what I wanted to ask. Is there's a thing over there called the British Boys Movement, or is it the British?
There was, yeah.
What's that?
It was an organisation that sponsored young men. So there's a cross against it in the modern era for starters. Young men under 21, and it sponsored them to come to Australia. And that's how I came back to Australia. Because from the Australian government's point of view, I was English, even though I lived most of my life in Australia. I was an English national, not an Australian national, and I didn't qualify to emigrate. I didn't have the right skill set. I would need to do a 2-year accelerated course in some sort of trade, which I was reluctant to do, and then discovered the British Boys Movement, and they sponsored me to come back to Australia when I was 19.
It's interesting that, a lot of people try to come to this country here and they use the back door, but you went through it the right way. I mean, my parents' history and trying to get to Australia here is pretty tough as well. And probably around the same era. So you came around the 60s. So before writing this book, what was your thing? What were you doing? Who were you?
Who was I? I was a corporate trainer and facilitator. So I was delivering training programs to organisations mostly in Queensland, both regional and Brisbane Metropolitan. And in fact worked with the Australian Institute of Management as a contracted facilitator and coach with them for about 15, 16 years, which is where I had the misfortune to run into you.
That's it. I remember turning up to the Australian Institute of Management. It was like, do you remember Troy McGilvery?
I do.
So he was the guy who rang me up one day and he said, "What are you doing, Porshman?" And I said, "What do you want me to do?" And he said, "Come work with the Australian Institute of Management." So I'm dressed like this. So I go to the Australian Institute of Management where John is as well. And I'm looking at all these guys in suits and I'm thinking, what is this? Did somebody die here? Were you a suit wearer over there?
Yes.
So you followed the path of listening to, what was her name? What was the CEO's name?
Carolyn Barker.
Carolyn Barker. Yes. Did you listen to everything she said?
I did.
Because she was the sort of person that would come down to me and she'd say, "Gerald, we need to have a chat." And I go, "Yeah." She goes, "You have to wear a suit." I go, "What? A suit? Why? I'm talking to people who are out in the mines. What do I have to wear?" It's kind of like the corporate image. Did you ever buck the system?
Look, to be honest, I did.
Oh.
And I had a conversation with Carolyn about it as well. Around Brisbane, well, southeast Queensland, I had no problem wearing a suit because most of the people that were in the room with me were at least wearing a collar and tie. But when you went out to out west or up to the mines or whatever, people are in their high vis gear, and you turn up in a suit, they don't want to listen to you. So I used to just wear a polo shirt with trousers and shoes, obviously. Although I did do some training on the Darling Downs where I went barefoot because everybody else in the room was barefoot too. And Carolyn and I had a conversation around that. And I said, "Look, I've got to go with the flow. If you want me to get the message across, I've got to be able to relate to the people in the room and them to me. And I can't do that when I'm wearing a tie and everybody else is in high vis."
There's a book out that the Australian Institute of Management published, and I think it was called something like the 7 Virtues of Leadership.
Ah, right.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it talks about all the different virtues, wisdom, integrity. What was it now? It's which PC was the acronym. Which PC? Let's go through it. Wisdom, humility, I, integrity, C, courage, H, humour, P, passion, C, compassion. How's that for a good memory?
Oh, that's, yeah.
Hey, Rudy,
excellent.
Remember that one? Mm-hmm. And Carolyn approached me to write a section on humour.
I wonder why she would have done that.
So she comes to me and she says, "Gerald, I want you to write a section for our book that we're going to be publishing and it's called The 7 Virtues of Leadership, and I want you to do the section on humour. And I went, I'm not a writer. And she said, doesn't matter. Just put anything down. And so I wrote like a paragraph, humour, just don't tell jokes. Sent it to her. And she said, you need to flesh that out a bit. We'll have somebody sit with you. And I said, no. I could have been an author. Well, sub-author. What would you call that? A paragrapher?
Contributing author.
A contributor. I would have liked to have been a contributor, but I'm not a contributor. Now, let's talk about authorship. I want to talk about authorship. I love this book here. There's a section in here, and I've got a little pink piece of paper in here because I'm going to read this out a little bit later.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
Yes, I'm going to question you on it. But there's a section in your book that you talk about success.
Yes.
So how do you define success?
I think everybody's got to have their own definition of success. I mean, the instance that I quote in the book is quite. It was quite moving, actually. I was at a seminar, 500 people in the room, and I'm delivering a segment on negotiation, which in the corporate world I became fairly well known for delivering around negotiation. And the guy that was presenting just before me was talking about success. And he asked everybody in the room with a show of hands, who in the room considers themselves to be successful. And probably about a third of the room put their hand up. So he picked out one woman in the front row who hadn't put her hand up and said, okay, you didn't put your hand up. Why don't you think you're successful? And she said, well, I'm working in a job that I don't like. I'm in a rented home. I've got a couple of kids. We struggle to make ends meet. I'm not where I want to be. So I asked her a couple of questions about her kids, and they were, approaching teenage years. And she spoke for a few minutes around that. And then he said to her, okay, I've got a proposition for you. He said, how about I buy your kids? And I'll give you $1 million each for them. And she chuckled. He said, I'm serious. Will you sell me your kids? And she said, well, I can't. It's illegal. He said, forget that. Let's say it's legal. He said, is $1 million the right price, or do we talk a higher price? She said, I couldn't sell my kids. I love my kids. She said, what mother would sell their kids even for $1 million? He said, okay. He said, so let me get this right. He said, you think you're not successful. He said, but you've got 2 assets there that are worth $2 million, which you won't sell. Now, who here in the room thinks that a mother doing a job that she hates to put food on the table, to bring up 2 kids to be useful members of society, who thinks that's successful? And without exception, everybody in the room stuck their hands up. And not only that, they stood up and gave her a standing ovation.
Wow.
And he wrapped all of that up by saying, success isn't always what you think it is. You've got to define your own success, because most of us here in this room are actually already successful.
Yeah.
We just don't realize it.
It's interesting, that whole process of success. I think some people define it as, how much money they've got in the bank.
Yep.
Some people might define it as how healthy they are. And in this case here, the mother not selling her child. Obviously, he picked the right woman, because if he had to pick somebody like me and said, mate, do you want $1 million? You want to give me that much? Seriously, I'll take that.
Yeah.
And there'd be a lot of people watching this now going, I'm selling my kids for 2 million.
Give me his number.
Give me his number. I'll sell my kids. It's interesting. But why do you think, because in your book you talk a lot about this victim mentality. Why do people play the victim card?
Look, it's a really good question. I think we get used to considering our circumstances as making our situation. And therein lies the slippery road down to victim mentality. Because, the reality is we all have periods in our life where things aren't going right. And we have to do things that we prefer not to do because you've got to put food on the table. So we all have those. But if you've been in a situation that you don't like for longer than 6 months, that's no longer about circumstance. That's about choice.
Hang on. So, all right. Let me call you out on this. I'm in a situation, not myself, for example, but say I'm in a situation, it's a dead-end job. I hate my job, but I've got to put food on the table.
Yep.
And the only way that I can do that, my skills are limited. I only have maybe a few skills. I might be able to, type it fast. I might be able to have creativity in my job. But no one recognises me because I've got a lack of qualifications or I've got a lack of skill. So I stay in my job for... some of these people that work in local government, state government, they're there for 30, 40 years.
Yep.
But they complain about it all the time.
Yep.
But they do it because they know they're going to be providing for the family. So you're now saying that after 6 months, if I don't like my job and I'm still in my job, that's a choice that I'm making. So what's the alternative?
The alternative is to develop a plan to move you closer to where you'd prefer to be. Because if you just go with the flow, look, nobody is going to make your life better unless it helps them, right? So your employer is, if you're in a job, is not going to allow you to develop your potential unless it suits them. So by staying in a job for longer than you should, you're benefiting your employer. You're not doing your family the service that you should be. Your job to provide for your family is to provide for your family, but to do so in a manner that allows you also to feel fulfilled. And you're not going to feel fulfilled if 8 to 10 hours of every working day you're pulling your hair out because you hate your job. What does that do to the way you treat your wife and your children, or your husband and your children? You can't be in a positive mindset going home. They're probably copping a fair bit of lack of attention or snappiness, and you don't mean to do it. It's just that 10 hours has really wiped you out. And hats off to the people that do that for an extended period of time, but you don't have to. You can start making plans. You can start to work your way out of the situation into a preferred environment. And I talk a lot about that in the book. How do you do that?
Yeah.
What's the first step? What's the second step? What are the contingencies I need to be taking into account? What happens if this happens? All of those sorts of things. I'm not saying it's easy, because it's not. So it's not a walk in the park, where you get these people that write books and, do videos and tell you how great life can be if you just snap your fingers. It doesn't work like that. Yeah. It's hard yakka, and it takes discipline, and there's going to be obstacles along the way. But you're better to work towards your defined obstacles rather than your employer's defined obstacles.
Are you a big believer in this? That book that was Rhonda someone who wrote the book called The Secret. If you manifest it, it will come. Like if I put it out to the universe will provide. So are you a believer that one of two things? You plan your life as to the direction that you want to go, and there are going to be some obstacles along the way. Or my thinking is my plan has already been developed for me. So no matter what path I take, it's going to happen anyway. So the plan for Gerald has already been told by the time I die. Like whoever it is, whatever it is, the universe or the being that's out there has already planned for me. Or do you think I can really make a shift now, and I can make some choices today that's going to shift my success rate?
Yeah, look, I'm not a firm believer in if you think it will happen. I think the first step in anything is to think it. You've got to have a picture in your mind. You've got to have a vision as to what you want your life to look like. And then you can start to develop a plan that will move you closer to that vision. So I do believe that thinking positively and projecting positively will attract positive energy and will make it easier for you to complete that journey. But I'm not a great believer in having a picture on your fridge and looking at it every day, and one morning you wake up and the picture is reality. You've got to take action. You've got to take affirmative action, and you've got to have a process associated with that. I believe that whatever the being is, whatever the force in the universe is, acknowledges people that take action. It doesn't acknowledge people that sit back and say, woe is me.
Yeah, that victim mentality, you know, the world owes me. I've put so much into my life, and now the life now owes me back. If you're sitting out there and you want to have a chat to Dennis, I'm going to put the lines open up in a moment, but if you've got some questions that you might want to ask the man with all the wisdom, don't forget, you know what the numbers are. They're in the description. Have a look. Give us a call. I'll open the lines up in about 5 minutes, but check out the description. So, Dennis, I'm thinking when it comes to the work, so there's this whole thing about this work-life balance. You know, we've got to work, and then you've got to have this life. And then you wrote something around, which I've heard a lot, is that if you do what you love, like if you do your passion, you'll never have to work a day in your life. But that's not true, is it?
No, I think it is true. I think it is true.
But you still have to work.
But it's not work anymore. You see, people associate the word work with the drudgery of the 9 to 5 or the 12 to 12 or whatever the shift is, because that's what they've been conditioned to. And work takes on this negative connotation. But if you can engage, let's use that word, if you can engage with something that you love doing and you can monetize that, now all of a sudden you're earning a living doing what you love. That's not work. You know, people often ask me, when will I retire?
Yeah.
And I say to them, I'm retired now. I'm retired now because I'm doing what I love. I'm still working, not as hard and as long as I used to, but I do what I love. I mean, my work now revolves around helping other people get more control in their lives. I mean, how can you call that work?
Yeah.
It's fabulous when you have a conversation with somebody and they've opened their heart to you and they've shared things with you that they don't share with anybody else, and you have a conversation with them around that, and it's not about telling them what to do.
No.
But it's about sharing ideas, and then all of a sudden you see a light go on in their eyes.
Yeah.
That's what I do this for.
Yeah.
And that's not work.
Because there is a question that I have asked a few people, you know, what gets you up in the morning? What's the thing that really drives you? I remember remember Jenny Gorman, the late Jenny Gorman? She passed away about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I remember sitting with her on the couch one day, and she wrote a book called Find Out What Your Purpose Is. And I was honest to her, and I said, I don't have a purpose. And she said, no, we can work out what your purpose is. I don't have a purpose. There's no purpose. And like some people will say, yeah, but your purpose today is to wake up and read the news out to your father. That's not a purpose. That's something that I just love doing. But I can take 5 days off, no problems, and all the degenerates and the deplorables on here get upset because I'm not on. But it's not a purpose. Do I have to have a purpose to fulfill my life?
No, I don't think you do. I think
then let me just cutting in. So why is the Simon Sinek thing so important? Why is his thing find out what your why is, and then the what and the how comes easily. So okay, let's just say, for example, this is my why. Why do I do this every day? So I do this every day so I can read the news out to my father and talk to, a couple of hundred deplorables on here. That's not a purpose. No. That's just a bit of fun. But if that's my why, then what is the how and the what? So how am I going to do it? Is it I'm not a producer, so we know that. And then the what is it that I want from it? Is that what it is? The why, the how, and the what? Is that what he talks about?
Look, I think the why is about it's about the why. Why do you do that? You don't necessarily have to have. You see, the word purpose to me indicates a higher calling. What's my purpose? It's got depth to it. Whereas why do you do that doesn't have the same depth to it, doesn't have the same ring to it. So I don't believe that you need some awe-inspiring purpose in order to give your life meaning.
Yeah.
If you can say, as you are able to, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, that's enough.
Is that enough?
Not for everybody, but for you don't have to have some light at the end of this massive tunnel that is your overarching purpose for everything that you do. I mean, that takes a lot of discipline and is highly motivating without a doubt, but you don't have to have that.
You ready for a call?
I'm ready
Throw your headphones on. I think we know how this works. G'day, mate. How you going? I'm not too bad. Can somebody on the other end who was watching this give me a thumbs up to let me know that you can hear is it Bill on the other line? Yeah. If somebody can give me a thumbs up to say you can hear Bill, and if somebody's just said no, you can't hear Bill, thumbs down. Okay, just 2 seconds. People, stay with me. No, I can hear you, but I just want to make sure that everyone else can. Can somebody else hear me? Give me a thumbs up. Still got thumbs down. No. Stay with me 1 second, people. Don't go away.
Take your time.
I'm taking my time. I'm taking my time. Now, let me just do this settings in here. No, okay, I've got nope on here. Desktop audio, it says. Oh, I know why. Hang on. Maybe I should hit that. Can somebody now? I'm supposed to hit one button. I had one job, people. I got one job. All right, I've got one job, Bill. All right, Bill, if you can just introduce yourself and g'day. We've got it now. I think we're on. Chef, how you going? I think we got him when he said take your time. All right. I just needed to hit one button, mate. Sorry, it was my fault, being a ass that I normally am. Mate, what do you got? What do you want to ask Dennis? Hang on a minute, Bill. Hang on a minute. I've got... hang on 1 minute. I don't think anyone's hearing you. I've got all the things going. And... try that now. All right. If just once again, if you can just say, hey, I'm Bill.
Test. 1 2 1 2.
All right. Let's just see. I had him and now nothing. I've got thumbs down. Yes, Thrashy says yes. Okay, we are good to go. Sorry, mate. My error. I'm hitting buttons here and I need a producer. What did you want to ask Dennis?
Anyway, I was saying that I've tried to pursue that line of thought of if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I worked in agriculture when I was real young. I worked at a hospital for a few years, and I enjoyed that for a while. And then after a while, I kind of lost my stomach for it because watching people die is not very, very much fun at all. And then I left there. I went to culinary school and became a chef, and I loved that. But after 15 years of that, the same thing. It becomes just work, brutal work. Mm-hmm. And then I left that because I was having a family and I wanted to be home 9 to 5, and I became a plumber. Now I make good money as a plumber, but I'm 55 years old now, and I'm starting to realize that every plumbing company that I work for, they treat me pretty well, but in the end, it's their goals, their end result that they care about more than anyone that works for them. I don't really want to put all of the money out to start my own business at 55. Do you have any ideas or any insight on what I could do to feel like I'm not killing myself towards the end of my career? Yeah,
look, Shep, what you're facing is pretty common, to be honest. And whilst you've had a variety of careers, you have always been working for other people. And as you've correctly pointed out, with your current experience in the plumbing industry, you're working towards their goals, not to yours. So when people say, if you work at what you love, you don't end up working a day in your life. It's more about asking yourself the question, what really gives me energy? Like, when you're doing your plumbing job, Shep, you get to the end of the day and you're going to be fairly exhausted, right? Because it's can be fairly hard work, right?
Yes.
And you don't want to have to do that. The older you get, and at 55, your body's starting to say to you, slow down, mate. You can't do the same level of work, the same intensity of work for the same duration that you could do 20 years ago. And that's the case for all of us as we age. So it's about asking yourself, what can I do that is not physically taxing, that I love, that I can earn money from? And have a brainstorming session with yourself. Get yourself a blank piece of paper. Write down all of the things that you do that actually give you energy, that don't rob you of energy, right? Because these are the things that you can start to look at more closely in terms of whether they have the potential to generate income. So that's your starting point. What are the things in your life that you do at the moment that actually give you energy? They give you a buzz. You end up feeling more energized after it than you were before it. That's where you start.
Brilliant.
But does that make sense to you, mate? Because I know the process of getting a piece of paper out and then starting to jot down everything that gives you enjoyment and pleasure. That's one thing, and you put that up on the fridge and you can look at that every day. But what's the obstacle? I think Dennis talks a lot in his book about, what is the obstacles in your way? What's stopping you from just going, stuff it. I don't need to work for these mongrels anymore. I can start my own business up. What's stopping you from doing that?
It's a very, very expensive proposition. Yeah, just to get started, you need to have you need to be bonded, which means that you have to have $50,000 in the bank at all times, at a minimum. And that's to start. I have all my own tools, but then I have to be licensed by the state, which means I have to go through probably 4 years of certifications, 3 years of certifications, and that costs money and a lot of time. And the realization that many people don't make it.
Yeah.
There are lots of companies, lots of men that I know that have tried it and put themselves really badly in debt because they'll do a job and then the person they did the job for doesn't pay them.
Dennis, you hear this a lot, don't you? Like, you must hear this a lot. Sorry, Bill. It's just when I listen to you, I just hear a lot of the things that you can't do, and it's like, I can't afford this. I know there are people around me that, have failed. And I think what you're doing, from what I'm hearing, and I don't know you that well, but from what I'm hearing is that you're saying, I think I'm going to be one of those people that the lecturer looks out at and says, 1 in 5 people in here is only going to make it. The rest of you're going to not make it. So you take that, I think you take that percentage and go, well, I must be the other 4 people that won't make it. So Dennis, what can you do if you were to sit down with Bill, for example, and change your mindset?
No, hold on.
Hold on, I'm holding on.
Gerald?
Yep.
Hold on.
I'm holding.
I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way at all. What I do understand is that working for the company that I work for, they've been established for a long time.
Yeah.
And they face that same problem. And they're fortunate enough that to have a cash reserve to back them up. And they face that problem all of the time. And they actually have to have lawyers get involved. It's come to that in the United States, that almost every time at the end of a job, I'm working on a very big job right now. It's like a $125 million job.
Yeah.
And when they bid the job with lawyer costs of 150 hours. that's part of the bid now, because you're going to have to fight for everything that you do. It's not that I don't feel confident in what I'm doing.
No,
Not at all. I know what I'm doing,
but financially,
and I
you're bound. Financially, you can't.
I don't have. I mean, I have equity in my home. I have my retirement.
Yeah.
Which, by every stretch, everything that I've ever read says, do not touch your retirement, because you are going to need it. And I have a pretty good retirement, and I have a good job, and they're not tyrants to me at all. They treat me very well. But I when I started plumbing, it was interesting. It was new. I learned a lot. And then now I am fixing other people's mistakes on a daily basis. And that's part of becoming any tradesman, is that once you reach a level, you are bound to be fixing the younger generation's mistakes and trying to correct them. It's how everyone learns. But it's just becoming frustrating for me. I'm not saying that my life is horrible or anything like that. I live a pretty good life. Living in Southern California, it's a pretty good life. But really, I would like to blow glass and make beautiful little things. Yeah. And maybe that could be a reality. But I've looked into it, and they don't make that much money. You know what I mean? Yeah. For what I want to do. Anyway, I've taken up a lot of your time, so I'll let you guys hash it out.
Thanks, mate.
Off air, and I'll talk to you soon, Joe.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks for your contribution.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye bye.
Yeah, interesting enough there, Dennis. You must hear that sort of stuff happen on a daily basis. You know, when you do your conferences, and I'm not saying Bill was a negative person. I think what's the constraint or what's the obstacle is that things get in our way. You know, that prevents us from doing it. For me, there was a simple reason that I started my own business. One simple reason is I looked at the people that I was working for, and I went, I can do a better job than you. And that was as simple as it got. It's like, you are your experience on Daydream Island. I worked on Daydream Island. So I was there. I was in HR. I was one of those people that used to ask people, what are you going to do in the next 5 years? I was one of those people. And I just thought, this company here has no idea how to treat customers right. They don't know how to do it. So I went, you know what? I'm going to go into competition with you. I'm going to start up my own business, and I'm going to be the one that does it. And you would have had the same experience. But it was that mindset, that shift that said, you know what? I can either keep making money for these people, or I can do it for myself. And Bill, I know where you're coming from, man. When I left Daydream Island, I didn't have a house, I didn't have a car, I had nothing behind me, except maybe just the mindset that thought, oh, well, I can eat beans for the rest of my life. I can rent an $120 a week house. They're the sacrifices, but I know you're 55 now. You don't want to have to go through that. You got kids and you got a lifestyle, and it's hard to give all that. So what else could he do?
Look, I think the message I got from Shep was that he's got a good life, but he's looking for something better. Yeah, and rightly so. And he points out, look, if I'm going to continue, I love doing plumbing. Yeah, it can be tiring sometimes. It can be frustrating sometimes, but overall, I still enjoy it. The problem is, to do it on my own, there are barriers to entry, right? And in any industry that is successful, and will define success in industry as being profitable, right? There are barriers to entry, and those barriers are quite deliberate. They are designed to keep the majority of people out of being able to do their own thing, right? So those barriers to entry can be the cost of equipment, it can be the cost of licensing, it could be, as Shep mentioned, you've got to be bonded, 50 grand minimum in reserves. These are all designed to keep the little guy out. But that doesn't mean that you can't do something. I noticed in one of the comments, somebody made the suggestion, hey man, why don't you train other people to become really good plumbers?
Great idea.
Maybe that's something. Yep. At the end of the day, what Shep and anybody in a similar situation needs to do is start with that blank piece of paper and write down all of those things that do give you energy, and then on a separate piece of paper, for each of those things that you've written down, write down what the barriers to entry are. What's it going to cost you to get going in that space?
Yeah.
Because at the end of that exercise, you'll have a selection of 2, 3, or maybe 4 different ideas that don't cost a lot to set up, that don't have a lot of risk associated with them, that are worth giving it a go. And that makes sense. I'm not recommending to anybody that they risk their home, that they risk their superannuation or retirement, that they risk, because you could lose it all.
Yeah.
And when you're in your 50s and above, you really don't have enough time for a do-over, right?
Yeah.
You got to make it count. So it is about finding low risk, low cost opportunities that provide you with energy from that first sheet of paper that you can actually do something with.
Yeah. I think that's the hardest process, isn't it? Like, I've always learnt about something around the decision making, the 4 boxes in the decision making.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but you can probably help me out with this. It's, should I leave? It could be the heading up the top. Should I leave my workplace? What are the pros? So the pros to me leaving and the cons to me leaving.
Yep.
And then what are the pros and the cons to me not leaving? So there's the 4 boxes.
Yeah.
So I think I got that right.
Yeah,
Is that right?
definitely.
Yeah. So should I leave this dead-ass job that I have? I think that's in the heading already. The pros of leaving and the cons of leaving, and then should I not leave? The pros and the cons of that. But that's the hardest step to take. And when you see it on a piece of paper, it gives you the reality of going, man, there are so many pros of leaving and there are so many cons of not leaving that I should maybe leave. But then why do people then stay in that headspace and go, I'll stay here?
It's because it's what they're familiar with.
It's what they're used to.
We get into the habit. There's the analogy here in terms of human behavior and animal behavior. Elephant trainers, when elephants used to be a thing in the circus, they would get a baby elephant and they would put it on a 1 meter lead and tether it.
Yeah.
So the elephant's world was 1 meter around that tether. Now, as the elephant grows older, it tries at times to get away. It can't, but it becomes conditioned. It becomes conditioned to the point where the trainer takes the tether off and the elephant still won't move more than 1 meter away from where the tether point is.
That's
because it's been conditioned that it can't go any further. And that's the challenge for far too many people in our society. They've been conditioned to accept their lot in life. They get used to their lot in life. And even though they hate it, it's familiar. So they stick with it.
Do you think COVID in the last 2-3 years has forced people, not made people, but maybe have forced some people to make that decision really easily?
Yeah.
Yeah, like for example, I can always use me as a good example here, is that prior to COVID, not living the dream, seriously, just doing what I want to do and, drink as much as I want to drink and then turn up drunk if I have to. Then COVID forced me in a position that says, okay, things have changed, things have shifted, and only through a choice of mine though, wasn't it? It's only because, and the same choice that you made as well. You've made the same choices that I've made. And so now 3 years later, we're sitting here and we're going, wow, so this wasn't something that I had planned to do, but forced to do it. I wonder if people then can take control of their own destiny. I hate that cliche, but they take control of their own destiny saying, well, if G-Mann was forced into this position and he's doing these dead-ass YouTube things for deplorables, maybe I should take control while I still have the opportunity before I get forced out. So do you think, what strategies have you seen people come up with that COVID has forced them into, that they're now saying, why didn't I do this 15, 20 years ago?
Look, I think that the simplest and most powerful example of that are people that were doing the 9-to-5 grind. They're traveling from home to work. They're doing their job, then they're going home. They're in a car or they're on public transport. Getting to and from work is a real grind. Working in the office for a lot of people is stressful. They have to work with people that they don't get on with. COVID hits, they have to work from home. Now they've not got the grind to get to and from work. They're not having to mix with those people that they didn't like, and they've enjoyed it. And they go, wow, what can I do that will allow me to keep doing this.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. I think COVID has forced a lot of people into making a decision they knew they had to make at some point, but they kept putting it off. COVID prevented them from doing that. They experienced the benefits, no more traveling time, no more working with alongside people I don't get on with.
Yeah.
I'm still getting a paycheck. How can I keep this going?
Yeah. We're running out of time, man. It's already gone the 1 hour, but I want to stay on for a little while because I think, and the lines are still open if somebody wants to call and maybe ask Dennis a bit of a question here. But I always like the Kubler-Ross model, the stages of loss or the stages of grief. Mm-hmm. And we won't go too much in depth of it, but can we give an example? Let's just say, for example, let's do a stage of loss for me so people can get an understanding of how that process of loss might work. So it first starts off with, shock or denial, doesn't it? So let's just go through that. G-Mann's going through his daily life, doing what he's doing. COVID hits and I've lost a career, lost my livelihood, I've lost my finances. So what's the stages before I hit acceptance? So let's just go through that so people can get a bit of an understanding.
The first thing you're going to do is deny it's happening, right?
Yeah, true, yes.
Yeah, and through that denial, you're going to be looking at ways to keep it going, right?
Yeah.
So you're in a state of denial. This really can't be happening, right?
Well, can I just take a step back there? I think at first it was a bit of shock. It's like, really?
Yeah.
They're gonna do that? And then, but my second thing was, in my head was, this isn't going to last long. Like it's
well, that's another form of denial.
Oh, is it?
You're not accepting the reality, right?
Because I was looking at the Ebola case. When Ebola struck, it took 93 days. There's a great movie out there called 93 Days. So Ebola hit, and in 93 days they contained it. Done. So I thought, at worst, 93 days. So that's denial, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
What happens after that?
Well, then you get angry.
Yeah.
The bastards, how dare they do this to me?
Yeah.
They can't do this to me. This isn't right, So anger happens as a consequence of you moving out of denial. You're accepting that it's happening.
Yeah.
But how dare they?
Yeah.
Who do they think they are?
I must admit, there have been some people on here going, they email me privately, "You all right, mate? Yeah, is everything okay? You seemed a little bit angry today." Mm-hmm. No shit, Sherlock.
Yeah.
So, okay, we've got anger. What then happens after that? Because there's this interesting one called bargaining.
Yeah, well, that is what happens next.
What's that?
Bargaining is where you try and cut a deal. There's got to be another way that we can slice and dice this. Maybe I can do instead of doing live workshops face to face, we can do it online. I'm prepared to cut my rates because I don't have the travel time, and this is all part of the bargaining process. So you're not angry anymore. You might be a little bit resentful, but you're not angry anymore. But you're looking for ways to try and keep the status quo. As much as you possibly can. But it's not until you get to that next point of acceptance.
There's depression.
Depression.
Yeah.
When the reality sinks in that this is real.
So, okay, let's just take a step back. So I've gone shock, denial, anger, bargaining, and I'm going, okay, how else do I cut a deal? I'll do some online stuff. I'll do this. This is me cutting a deal. I'll sell some T-shirts. Some people might super chat. I'll give them some big thanks. And then you're saying, okay, I've cut the deal now, but so why does depression then come in after that? I've cut myself a good deal.
Well, the deal isn't as good as you had before because you're not familiar with this new deal yet.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not working.
You will get familiar with it, and it'll become more acceptable.
Yeah.
But it's a transition state.
And then finally... Acceptance. It's like, okay, I'm stuck with...
This is the new reality.
Mm-hmm. And does it go back to... Do some people then go... There's that process of hope. There's that hope, optimism, thrill, excitement. Mm-hmm. Wow, and euphoria. It's like, wow, I've hit it. And then there's a bit of, things aren't going too well, and then you go through the despondency, then down to the bottom where you hit, rock bottom, and then there might be a bit of hope. There might be a section of your life where you just go, oh, I got a bite from someone. Is that what happens after that? There's a bit of hope.
And look, all of these models assume a linear progression. That you go bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work that way. You will go through those stages, but you may well regress. You might, during the bargaining, go back to anger. So it is a cyclical process. It can go backwards and forwards, but you will eventually hit the new normal and start to manage your new situation and go into the hope, excitement,
and I think what you were saying earlier on is that it's not going to take 6 weeks, so it's not going to take, a month. It may take a year, may take 2 years. So everyone's, process is going to be a lot different. Now I've got, I think Karen is coming online, so we might want to throw your headphones on again, and we'll have a chat to Karen once she connects. And if I can get this right this time, Karen, we might be able to see if we can get you online. So Karen is still trying to connect here, but while she does in a moment. All right, there we go. Karen, how you going? Can you hear me? All right, there we go. Karen,
yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic. Can you just turn down your radio in the background?
Yep, I just did.
Thank you. What would you like to ask Dennis?
Hi, Dennis. How are you today?
I'm well, Karen. Yourself?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Hey, I have a question for you. So I'm planning to retire in 3 years. So I have no idea what I'm going to do after retirement. So I know you talked a lot about, making lists and things like that. Is there anything for a person who is planning in the future to retire? What maybe some advices that you have for a person like that?
Yeah, sure, Karen. Look, I think, first of all, congratulations that you're approaching retirement in such a positive way.
Yes.
But retirement really, and it's one of the things that I do cover in my book, is a phase of our lives. I think a lot of people look at retirement as some sort of end game. It's another phase in our lives, in the same way that as a teenager, we prepared ourselves for college, and then after college, we prepare ourselves for entering the workforce. Retirement is just another phase. And with the increasing life expectancy in all Western societies, it's a fairly substantial part of our lives. So retirement, don't look at retirement as an end game. Look at it as another phase of your life where with the right sort of planning and approach, you will have a lot more flexibility and freedom to do things that suit you rather than to have to live up to the responsibility of perhaps buying a home, supporting a family, putting your kids through college. All of those responsibilities that we have, they start to ease back, and retirement is now a bit of payback time for the hard work that you've done in your life, to give you choices about what you would like to see happen in your life from that point forward.
You still there, Karen? Karen, you need to turn your mic on. This time it's on you.
Oh, sorry, tap to speak. Sorry. Yes. So, no, I totally agree with everything that you just said. And I do believe that I feel like I'm going through another stage of my life. I'm 56 right now. I'll be 59 when I retire, but I feel like my life is just beginning instead of ending. So that's what kind of makes it's a wide open space, I guess, if you will. So, making lists are great. I just feel like I need more of a focus.
What's your interest, Karen? What's your thing? What's your thing that, we spoke a little bit about passion. What's your thing?
My thing is I like to work with people. I love to work with people. I'm actually a school psychologist. I've been a school psychologist for 30 years. That's what I've been doing for the last 30 years. But I don't see myself doing that for the rest of my life. But I want to do something that will help people, I think, for the rest of my life. I think that would really give me a lot of passion in my life.
Can you define it a bit more? That's very broadband, isn't it? Like helping
It
people.
is.
Like and as a psychologist or as a counsellor, your role in there is really to guide people to
Yes.
think differently. Like we get that, but
Yes.
okay, you're going to walk out of that. Ideally, let's drill it down a little bit further.
Yeah, I
Helping
like the
in what
idea.
way?
I think so. There were some people in the chat that made some really good. They gave some good advice to Chef about teaching. Maybe that's what I want to do. Maybe that's something that I want to pursue in terms of helping people in psychology, and teaching people more information about special education laws and things like that. That's kind of my area of specialty in school psychology is special education law. So it sounds like good advice. Maybe that's something that I would possibly pursue in the future. But yeah, I think that's good advice. Yes.
Karen, have you thought about identifying some community organisations that you could add value to and do some volunteering? That in that way you're helping community groups, but also you're helping the people that are a part of those groups. That sounds like a good idea. Yeah, so I think there's a few things that you can explore. You've got a couple of years of opportunity to plan and identify here. You don't need to rush into anything. So my advice would be explore some options over the next 3 years and see what comes up trumps in terms of, hey, I really enjoyed that. And don't be afraid to do something out of the box. Like, don't just go along the path of extending what you've already done and basing it on your current experience. Look, your current experience provides you with a platform to do all sorts of things outside of your field of expertise. I'd suggest you look at some of those as well.
It sounds good. Sounds like great advice. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks for your call. Hey.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. All right, bye.
Well, Dennis, we go so much over time when I do these lives.
Yeah.
And I have a guest on. Maybe we've got to get you back.
I
think too many people have got too many questions.
I'd be happy to come back at any time.
And I just saw one of the commenters on there who I put up just by accident, and Dan Hill, who I had Dan Hill. You know Dan as well, don't you?
I do.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're all from the same school, aren't we?
Yeah.
I should have
I don't
Dan.
know whether that's a good or a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't know either. Maybe I should have Dan and you sitting here and we could nut it all out together.
Yeah, look, if we went over time today, that would be a super long
super
session.
long. Well, there's nothing wrong with going super long.
Yeah.
You know, it's great. And I had so many more things that I wanted to ask you in this space here because I think, you know, it kind of like gives me a bit of focus too. You know, it's good to rehash some of those things, you know, and great, it's great looking at models and great having a look at, you know, the way that other people think. And, you know, for the two callers that came in here today, it's not about saying, right, this is what you're going to do. It's just a different, you know, it's brainstorming, isn't it?
It is. It's a sounding board.
It's a sounding board. That's a great way of putting it. Yeah. And Karen would know that, you know, as being in the profession that she is.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
about the listening skill, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It's about getting people to talk to themselves.
It is.
And you just happen to be there to stimulate the direction of that conversation.
Well, mate, we're going to have to wrap it up. Rudy, I'm not even sure that he's probably having a bit of... he's probably doing that going...
Is that where you get it from?
I'm thinking he might be sitting there going, I might need to retire soon. Yeah, he's going to retire soon. So everyone, I want to thank you for indulging me in these interviews that I'm having. I just thought I'd reach out to some people, and on Sunday I think I've got David Hines. I don't think you know David, but he's a great mate of mine that I haven't seen for ages. I think the last time I saw him, he was building a caravan. So I want to know what's going on there and seeing what's happened. Mate, whack on your headphones. We're about to finish off. I'll play some music on the end, and if everyone can give Dennis a bit of a thumbs up, but also don't forget, Rudy, I do have a closing video. I think I do.
This ladder stayed in the house yesterday. This ladder stayed outside. Right off the bat, this ladder looks better than this ladder. That's how we view people. We don't take into consideration that this poor bastard stayed outside all night in the cold and the rain and all the other shit. And sometimes all you need in life is a little bit of help. So y'all don't be too quick to judge. We all go through shit. Be there for somebody sometimes. They may need you, and by God, you may need them.
How good's that?
That's deep.
It's pretty simple, isn't it?
But it's simple. Yeah, exactly.
Judging people for who they are and what they do, and maybe they just need a bit of a handout every now and then. All right, mate. Nice having you on. Everyone can say goodbye. It was great being here for the hour and 10 minutes. 15 minutes over time, Dennis.
Whoa.
Whoa. All right, everyone. Enjoy your time. I'll leave that last word with you, Thrashy. Why not? Auf Wieder Schnitzel. Everyone have a great night. Thanks very much for the chat. We'll see you tomorrow. If I'm not on, I'm not on.